Welcome to Curious Conversations, where we explore the power of curiosity in philanthropy and social change. I'm Maryann Fernandez, founder of the Curious Philanthropist, an organization that helps people dream big about the positive impact they can make in the world. With our special guests, we'll be exploring how asking these curious questions can lead to deeper impact and meaningful change. I recently sat down with Dr. Paul Schervish, one of the most influential voices in modern philanthropy. Now, Paul is the founder and former director of the Center on Wealth and Philanthropy at Boston College, where his groundbreaking research has shaped how we understand the motivations, values, and inner lives of wealthy donors. He conducted the first major study on wealth and philanthropy and helped produce the first findings on the Great Wealth Transfer. He is credited with coining the term the moral biography of wealth, a powerful idea that giving isn't just about money, it's about meaning. So we dove into a conversation that feels especially timely, how curiosity shapes the donor mindset. How can asking better questions lead to deeper, more authentic impact? And what might donors learn, not just about the world, but about themselves when they lead with curiosity? It's such a big topic that we had to split the conversation into two parts. So here's part one of my conversation with Dr. Paul Schervish.
Oh, Maryann, so nice to be with you. I'm honored to be asked to be part of this project that you're working on curiosity and
Oh, no,
health
thank
and
you.
philanthropy.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I remember you were one of the first people that I had approached when I was launching the Curious Philanthropist. And I remember that you had some initial reactions. I don't know if you could share that with our group.
Huh. I I found that when you called it Curious Philanthropist, curiosity, questioning is really the heart. Um, I said of what it means to discover your true self and to discover what your place is in the world. It's such a liberating question. Uh, it invokes um, what is already natural in us, curiosity. Um, Curiosity is where we start all of our learning. And when curiosity gets truncated, we stop learning. And so what's really important about your question today is that we need to unshackle people, have them be liberated to have the range of natural responses to their own version of the questions, to their own version of their curiosities, so that they are bringing long-term involvement not only to increase their happiness, but the happiness of others at the same time.
That's great. That's great. Now, I know that you've studied wealth holders and how they make these philanthropic decisions. So, how does curiosity shape the way wealthy donors start to think about their philanthropy, how they are forming a mindset around what they want to do?
Let me back up just a little bit on that and talk kind of about the preliminaries
That's
in my thinking. What is wealth? What is philanthropy?
mm,
Um, Wealth is essentially wherewithal. It's capital. It's all the variety of resources that people have from imagination and dedication that you are blessed abundantly with, to great amounts of wealth, to artistic ability, to physical abilities, hitting a baseball, throwing a football, dunking a basketball, playing lacrosse, whatever those great physical skills are, good looks. These are all the resources that people can put into play. And it's not just wealth, but we're talking especially in this conversation about people with in addition to those forms of wealth, have a substantial amount of financial wherewithal. And so it's really wealth and philanthropy is wherewithal and beneficence.
Mm.
And we need to talk about the second term a little bit in a second. But first of all, on the wherewithal side, I've also, with one of my dear friends, Andrew Herman, one day when we were first doing our research, he said, "You know what we're talking about?" He said, "We're not talking about agency. We're talking about hyper agency." And by that, we meant the special ability of people with financial wherewithal. Not only them, um, some great thinkers and leaders have this ability um, to do so without money by force of personality or good ideas. But when we speak about it in terms of wealth, in financial terms, this hyperagency means that people are not only taking the world and finding their best place in it, they are actually world builders. They're shaping the world. And when it comes to their philanthropy, Aristotle distinguishes between generosity and magnanimity. Now, magnanimity is generosity that ends up being a contribution of generosity that is society building, society wide, not just within a homestead or a smaller community, but ends up being um, a grand contribution to the society as a whole. And we see this magnanimity being the kind of potential that more and more people, the wealth holders today, and not just the billionaires, of course, but people, let's say 30 million or 50 million and above, or those who have 10 million on the way to 30 million. You understand, the people
Mm.
that have not only the ability to live and find a place in the world, but to be founders of the world.
Mm.
Now, these are people who are characterized most by freedom and choice. If you were to ask any wealth holder, what is it most that money and large amounts or wealth in the financial realm brings you? They may not say psychological freedom. Oh, yeah, I still have hangups, they'll say. I'm still not liberated completely. But it offers the opportunity to have what you want in the material world, or to have a larger amount of what you want in the material world. So the question is, what do you want? What's the quality of your wants? And how much do they touch upon helping to meet the wants or the needs of other people simultaneously? And so that is the term philanthropy that we're talking about today. That is, how can you be a hyper agent in philanthropy without neglecting kind of smaller things of generosity? But the question that is, oh, provoking many of today's wealth holders is how can they be world builders when they aren't going to be the two, three, 4,000 billionaires, or now 100 billionaires, hundredfold billionaires that are dictating so much of what goes on in philanthropy. So it's ironic that so many wealth holders think they're small donors today
Mm.
and that they're small actors and they are unworthy of exploring these questions in a deeper way, that only the super or the ultra wealthy have this ability or this right. And so, this preliminary notion is that this set of questions that we're going to explore are for all the wealth holders. And eventually, Maryann, they're for all people, really. All of us are figuring out how can we help meet the true needs of others
Mm.
while we explore how that meets our true need to be a deeper person.
That's great. So to recap, when you say hyper agency, doesn't really matter how many zeros you have in your bank account. What matters is how you think about the impact you want to make. Maybe it's your community, maybe it's within your state, maybe it's nationally, maybe it's internationally, but it is that impetus that has come from within you to make to make a change.
Well, in the old sociological term, what is your role? It doesn't
Mm,
have to be compared to or belittled by somebody else's role. And this is something that uh, today um, we have something new in history, and we have something new in people's personal lives among the wealth holders. We can say it's true across the board, but let's focus on our particular topic here today. And what is new in history is that never before have so many people at such a young age across the world had an entrepreneurial desire to affect how they change the world, to put into effect some change in the world. This is, as I said, not only new in people's lives, but new in history.
mm,
And so a lot of people are impatient or aggressive in criticizing, but this is a new question in history. We've never before had to ask, how do we handle such vast amounts of personal wealth? You know, it used to be just the province of a few entrepreneurs or a king or a conqueror or a queen, um, is now something that is the province of so many thousands or indeed millions of people across the globe. And this is what we're attending to today. And, you know, there's kind of a scolding model in all of this. I call it the dental model. Um, Drill, fill, and bill. We apply the scolding model so often to other people's philanthropy. They're giving too much, they're influencing too much, or you hear just the opposite in those books that are coming out today. Um, you're not giving enough, and you're not giving to the right causes, and you're not giving at the right time, and you're not giving in the right way with the right set of assets,
mm.
and you're not giving with the right kind of involvement.
It's a lot of pressure.
It is. And you know who applies the scolding model to ourselves the most? We do ourselves. We are our own worst scolders. Um, and that's why we're so good at it when we do it to other people. So part of it is in this question is to find out the curiosity is to not rediscover the scolding. It's to rediscover your own personal inspiration, to discover what you ought to be up to according to your own lights. It's the question of how can you find something that is important for you to do, is important to be done in the world, that you're able to do, that brings you some happiness and joy, and that brings other people a resolution or the meeting of their needs.
So
Uh,
it's almost like you want to silence the external noise and sometimes some of that inner scolding that we do ourselves to be able to let these curious questions, these inquiries, these gut reactions bubble up and explore.
what you're talking about is not questioning, it's what the questions are. Because
Mm,
don't forget, on the scolding side, your question can be very vibrant. How do I imitate so and so? How come I'm not as good as so and so? Those are all questions.
Mm.
Those are questions that seep in under the influence of darkness. But what I call them is poison in a milk bottle. They look like the right questions, but they are self-destructive. On the positive side, all the old mystics and teachers would call this the difference between the via negativa and the via positiva. What questions and answers do you have to get rid of? You have to work on self to purify, to eliminate these habits of self denigration, of imitation of others, of guilt. And the via positiva is to go in the direction that your project, Curious Philanthropy, is encouraging people to do. And we can talk more about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see um, what direction you'd like me to go into first.
Well, I'll make a quick comment because, we discussed this before, is that we often hold up certain individuals and families and saying, this is the right way to do effective philanthropy. You have to just focus on one thing, to make a real impact. And I feel like sometimes we use that to a disservice to ourselves because it limits us from saying, you know what, I'd love to focus on climate change, but I'm really curious at trying to think about how I can help women entrepreneurs be successful. And it's not a bad thing to be able to do both. We are sophisticated beings. We can focus on one and be interested and explore other things.
This is what, again, is attached to a wonderful term that has tremendous spiritual, religious, and psychological traditions. And we use it often in the right way in everyday conversation. The notion of discernment. Um, how do we figure out, how do we unpack what is the right thing to do? And let me take one more step in kind of liberating people in the kind of questions they can ask. When I first said it's wealth and beneficence or philanthropy, let's talk about Aristotle's notion of philia. Philia is the root word for philanthropy, and of course, we often think of it means love. But in Aristotle, and in the Greek tradition, there are four types of love. Philia is a specific type that is relational love. It is best translated friendship love. And let's take the example. It starts, Aristotle says, in the parent-child relationship. The mother-child, the father-child, the the spousal relationship, the partner relationship, the friendship relationship, where the nourishment is mutual. If you were to say, getting up in the middle of the night and taking care of a frightened younger sibling who's crying out in a dream, who shares a bedroom with you, and you comfort that little child, or you comfort your own baby in the middle of the night, or you comfort a friend who is suffering from a loss. Who's being nourished? Both you and the person you are helping. If, for instance, you find your child or some niece or nephew walking along a river, falls in over the railing or skids through the railings and goes into a river over their head, you jump in. And I say to people, whom are you saving? You say, well, I'm saving my nephew or my niece, or I'm saving my child. And I say, think more deeply. You say, I'm saving the child and I'm saving myself. And that's the model that I wish us to be curious about.
Mm.
Where do we find those modes of beneficence that we can meet true needs while we nourish ourselves simultaneously? And Aristotle says, interesting enough, that friendship love is the penultimate, the second to last goal in life. The ultimate goal in life is happiness. He doesn't mean the Detroit Tigers winning the World Series, my hometown team. Although I think maybe we could include that. But it's that inner, peaceful, ultimate reality that we seek. The Catholic Catechism says, "Who made me? God made me. Why did God make me? God made me to know, love, and serve Him in this world and to be happy with Him in the next." Notice that even in that rote, old-fashioned language, the term happy is so important. So, friendship love is the philia, is that way that we get closest to happiness for ourselves and others simultaneously. Now, I want to say one more thing here. In terms of liberation, the questions we're asking about mutual nourishment in the world need not even be, at this point in our lives, about philanthropy in the formal sense. It could be about building the right business. It could be about dedicating myself to finding a cure through a biotech company. It could be exploring the science behind how do we get bacteria in the ocean to soak up carbon dioxide.
So it could go across different modalities. Doesn't have to be strictly philanthropy as we know it.
That's right. It
Mm.
could be how do I help my brother or sister's children get through college? It could be, as one of the people I interviewed, endowed a Down syndrome child for the rest of her life so that that child could go on every family vacation, have a nurse with her, could go on every family trip, and would be taken care of into her old age and through her old age. Now, that isn't formal philanthropy. Another person said, what I do first before I do any formal philanthropy is I give all of my workers a chance for college tuition. And he said, that is a big sacrifice because when they get their college degrees, they leave me. And he said, I also have everybody that works for me have the same health insurance I have. And before I do any of that, before I do any formal philanthropy, I'm doing that. And so another thing that wealth holders may be figuring out before they move into large scale philanthropy or together with it is what do I do in terms of finances for my children? What is the business succession? What is the financial succession? What is good for them to have and what isn't good for them to have? And that's a great question. You notice these are all questions. What's the most important thing that wealth has done for my children or is doing for them? And what is the worst thing that it's doing for them or has done for them or might do for them? You see how layer upon layer, there's question upon question. Now, what kind of answers are we looking for?
Yeah, and there's certainly a progression because I think once people feel like certain needs are met and the most important people in their lives are taken care of, or have what they need, I think people have feel like they have that freedom to
Oh,
then engage more broadly in the
you're
world.
so right, Maryann. I think the leading question, or let's put it less boldly, one of the leading questions of the 21st century is how do wealth holders use their resources for deeper purposes when they have solved the economic problem or have financial security indefinitely into the future for themselves and their heirs. What is the use of wealth as a tool for deeper purposes? And those set of deeper purposes can be some combination of business, investment, philanthropy, um, bequests to children.
Wow, what a great conversation so far. Curiosity is really the key to finding yourself in life and in philanthropy. And here's the exciting thing. Your role in the world is how you define it. Minimize the noise of what other people are doing or the guilt of what you should be doing. There is no right or wrong way. So concentrate on what resonates with you, what inspires you, what brings you joy, and how that might meet the needs of others. So here's a secret about philanthropy. It nourishes both the beneficiary and the giver. And you don't have to be a billionaire to take part. Don't forget to tune in to part 2 of my conversation with Dr. Paul Schervish, where we will delve into how mobilizing experiences play a role in meaningful philanthropy.